welcome to this very special episode of the Jankyard. Very special because I'm going to host it, me, Schmendrix, the moment you've all been waiting for. We've gotten a lot of fan requests about this, and we're finally delivering, I'm pleased to say. I thought about hosting it by myself, but in the end I decided to invite the Canuck with all the answers, the treatment.
I'm here.
And I've also got the accountant you can count on, Killer Cactus.
Frog up.
Frog up. Yeah, we are... I don't know when this will ultimately release. We're preparing for the arrival of the latest member of the treatment's family by trying to get some episodes in the tank. So this will either come immediately after our Frog Up episode or it will release sometime in the future. But in our minds, we are still hot off the blazing success of our first and only catchphrase that has actually caught on among the three of us, which is Frog Up.
It's okay. It's never gonna die.
No,
we're gonna keep using it. It doesn't matter when this episode comes out.
Could be Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we're still gonna be talking about frogs going up.
And so since this may be an episode that we release at a later date, we're going to forego news because we don't know what exactly is going to be timely, and we're going to dive into a topic that we're fairly certain is going to be timely over the next several months, given the nature of the Red Rain cycle, which is what makes for an effective mono deck. We saw Lark win the pod tournament with a mono illusion deck. Killer Cactus has been tearing up the casual Ashteki lobbies with his all-nature Frog Up deck.
And Blitz.
Well, I went 2-1 in Blitz. I'm not quite tearing it up. I mean, could have torn it up better and won me an Accelerate alt art.
I tried really hard.
I know you did.
It's not my fault Carl always has redirect when he needs it. Always.
Yeah, that was... Well, you know what? That was karma for the match against me, where you had the only possible two-card combination.
And that was even more ridiculous, honestly.
Yeah.
You throw down a massive bear or something, and what did I do? I was like, Pain Shaman, hunting weapons.
Hunting weapons on a Pain Shaman was the only thing you could have done because I otherwise had multiple ways of removing any block. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
All my books were exhausted or whatever, and you could kill any 2-life thing, and I'm like Pain Shaman, hunting weapons, which is insane.
It's because you had that Frog Up. That was the only reason you could do it.
I told you got to keep a Frog Up at all times. If I didn't have a Frog Up, I couldn't have played hunting weapons. See that? Frog Up.
So, Killer, I wonder, as the member of the group that has most recently ventured into serious monocolor deck building with the Frog Up deck, do you have any reflections to kick us off about what makes for an effective monocolor deck when you're taking that as a deck building challenge, or perhaps leaning into some unexplored territory? Like, what went into the construction of that deck?
I mean, I could talk really intelligently for a while about some things.
Debatable.
But that's not what we do on this podcast. Wrong show, dude.
The reality is we created a catchphrase and I built a deck for it. Like, that's what happened. Okay? But I will say that having, like, I built a deck that kind of started out as a fun thing, but then started messing around with it and ran into a couple, kind of cool elements of that specific mono nature deck, which was, first of all, any deck needs a strong plan A, a good plan B, right? And, really.
And a desperate plan C.
Yeah. I mean, you need a strong plan A and a good plan B, right? And you need to have, generally some removal. You need to have a way to deal with the battlefield. And for mono decks, you need to understand at least what your deck can't do. Because if you're just in one color, then there's something that you're not going to be good at. Because there's no color out there that's really good at everything. And what I realized with this Aerodel is, first of all, what nature's not good at, I think, is single target removal. It's not great at that, at least for bigger stuff. It's pretty good at pinging things. It's not great at like killing knights, right? You can ice trap stuff. You can ping stuff. If they put down a hammer knight, there's not a ton you can do. Aerodel does kind of help with that with Water Blast, giving you the ability to do, ping Water Blast to kill a 3-life thing, which I think makes her the best nature Phoenixborn if you're going to do a mono deck. The other thing is her having Blue Jaguar kind of gives the deck a better bypass plan B, or it's kind of a reach plan B. It's not just bypass, right? It's the combination of bypass between Frostback Bear and Blue Jaguar and burn with Molten Gold and Frostbite. It can kind of do both of those things. Molten Gold and Frostbite isn't enough of a plan B on its own, but when you're swinging with Blue Jaguar and Big Bears, it's easier to get it down to, get the other Phoenixborn down to a critical life total where Molten Gold and Frostbite's enough to finish the game. So that it just kind of all came together that way. And the other thing I've noticed is Butterfly Monk is a great card in the deck because first of all, Aerodel's life isn't very high. The main drawback, though, typically with Butterfly Monk is that you end up milling yourself trying to play the Butterfly Monks because they cost power dice. But when you're playing 10 nature dice, you almost always roll at least one frog. And if you don't have, the deck doesn't have a ton of other frogs in it unless you're using Molten Gold or using frogs to do frog things. So, you don't have to meditate up to power as much. And so that was a really, really long-winded explanation to get to an answer to your question about why are mono decks good. And one thing mono decks do, I think, better than any non-mono deck is it rolls power sides that you need more often because you only use one type of power side in your deck. You roll 10 dice, on average, you're going to roll probably, I don't know what the math is, but I bet it's 2 power sides, maybe 3. So somewhere between 2 and 3 power sides, right? But when you're playing only one color, you're guaranteed that those power sides are useful, especially if you have a spellboard card that uses a power side.
I think the other thing it does really well is the cards that are typically double class costed, so in particular allies, which see less play or have traditionally seen less play because of 3 and 4 color decks, right, all of a sudden become easy to slot in, and you can realize their value and their potential without sacrificing your dice spread. So namely in nature, Pain Shaman, which has the ping and heal, and it's a 3 life, which is substantial against a lot of decks. The 3 life is I think a big barrier, and then Frostfang, which is the other one.
I mean, you're a hit on Sleeping Bear, but that's okay.
Don't sleep on it. Did you find, just qualitatively, that you were meditating fewer cards? I mean, was that true?
Yeah, and I think it's, again, because when you're playing 3 colors, you're always going to roll some basics, right? And if you don't have basic sinks, then you have to meditate those basics up. That's true of any deck. But if you're playing 3 colors and you have cards that use power sides in those 3 colors, you're not always going to roll those, and you're going to have to meditate for those. But if you're playing mono 1 color and you need a couple power sides, you're probably going to roll those. And that's so it's not like a massive difference in meditation, but it is a difference, right? And when you're in a grindy metagame like this with, I think more games going to fatigue now than they did, say, in the last set or the last meta that we were in. And that can matter. So I do think that's an advantage. And treatment, your point's well taken, that those cards that cost 2 dice of the same color, so Pain Shaman, Frostfang, and Molten Gold as well in this instance, are a bit easier to slot. You don't have to care. Like, one thing I've noticed I've been messing around with Brennan a lot lately, trying to play burn decks to see if that's still viable. And I found myself wanting 4 nature dice in those decks so that I can play 2 Molten Golds in the same round.
Right, yeah. I think that I have that in my deck too.
Yeah, but that puts a strain on what you can do with the rest of your deck in other colors, because you need a lot of Ceremonial. You probably want some Sympathy and or Charm. And starting out 4 nature and only having 6 slots for those other dice, that makes it difficult. But when you're playing mono, it's like, just have 10 of these and I can play all 3 Molten Gold and I don't care. Right? I literally won a Phoenix League game yesterday. I played 3 Molten Golds in one round. Like, I've never done that before, and you never even think that that's a thing, right? Because, you don't play 6 nature dice most of the time, but I had 10, so I could just play all the Molten Gold.
And even if you did have 6, then you're still probably using those for your summons.
Right, yeah. There's basically no other situation you're going to play 3 Molten Gold in a round. Now, that's an extremely extreme example, but still, it's a testament to the fact that you can play those double 1 color cost cards.
To engage in some idle speculation real quick. So you've now got several games under your belt with the Mono Nature deck. We are still pre-release of the next Red Rain set, which is going to be Mono Nature. What is your... You mentioned every mono deck is going to have weaknesses because the colors have natural weaknesses. Although I'll say Nature has fewer than many others.
I would say that's true.
But what, if that next mono deck that's going to be released were to add one thing that would put Mono Nature over the top, send it into, real contention consistently in a competitive environment, do you have a sense of what that would be? Like, what does the deck lack for that you found yourself wishing it could do?
A good single target removal or exhaustion spell that can take out a Knight, I think, would be big for Nature.
Mm-hmm.
Something like a Fester or even a Steady Gaze, like something like that, especially when I'm trying to play bears, because Knights are a big pain in the butt for a bear to deal with. Can't get around it. Unless, and that's, Jaguar does help, right? Like, in this deck. And there's been so much Jaguar hate. And, I'm like, loving the card in this deck. At this point, I don't even know what to take out for Rejuvenate when that card comes out. Whatever do we even know what it does? I don't know what it does. I can't remember, but
Rejuvenate?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, it's where for every time you put a conjuration down, you put a token on it, and then you can remove a token to refresh, or to remove, I should say, an exhaustion from a unit with the number of status tokens or less in attack value.
Okay.
So like if you had 3 tokens, or sorry, two tokens, you can refresh a bear. If you had 3 tokens.
A conjuration specifically, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right now that you say that. So yeah, I don't even know what I would take out for that. But I do think a big single target removal spell. I think right now you can use Molten Gold for it, but that kind of...
That's your closer.
That's some of your reach. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like Deep Freeze. That kind of works.
That's a card. It exists.
It is. I've seen it do some work. I don't play it in this list, but
I've used it in my Rhino deck, and it can be quite effective if you are going for a big swing, because it takes so many turns. It ultimately could still be golden veiled, like any removal.
It adds a certain number of status tokens, and the unit's considered exhausted until you remove all the status tokens, or while any status tokens are present, right. And your opponent can use side actions to thaw and remove a status token, I believe.
Right. It basically exhausts a guy for 3 turns. And if, that can work as a single target removal spell. And it's a card I looked at adding in here, but it ultimately didn't. Just kind of loaded up on the ping and the Ice Traps and Molten Gold, and then they have Aradel's ability. But, what you can do is look into... So the other thing Nature's not good at is dice fixing. It doesn't do any of that. But there's basic cards that do that. Like Call Upon the Realms does that. Channel Magic does that. So you don't really need a nature card to fix dice. So, I mean, I would look at a single target removal spell, but like you said, I think nature is one of the more well-rounded colors, honestly. It has AoE, it has bypass, it has burn, it has good attackers.
It doesn't really have any reactions.
It has Ice Trap.
It doesn't have reactions, though. Yeah, and cover, but like...
Oh, cover's not a card. That doesn't exist.
There's not a lot of like protection, like reactive protection.
Yeah, it doesn't have a card, like a Golden Veil type card. And that is one thing I've noticed too, which is a problem, right? So, and maybe that's even a better point. Like when you have a massive bear sitting out there, it's very very vulnerable to a removal spell, because there's not really anything in nature I can do to stop you from ping festering my massive bear. So you got to be a bit more careful about, when you put massive growth on a bear. And it's something I was thinking about that specifically, as a matter of fact. I can't believe I didn't think of that when you asked me. With this deck, it's great to have 10 nature dice. It's made me wonder, when you're looking at these mono decks, if you want to, instead of going 10, you go like 8-2, and you just pick up another color just to shore up your weaknesses in a certain area for something critical. Like 8 nature, 2 charm to pick up Golden Veil and redirect or something might be, a really good pivot for this deck to go in.
So I was gonna go there actually, which is, I mean, we're gonna keep talking about mono decks because it's an interesting set of constraints, and I think it reveals a lot about each color. But just practically speaking, if to issue a hot take, I think every mono deck is improved by 1 to 2 dice of another color. I would find it, the only possible exception is maybe Lark's mono illusion deck, only because it is so reliant on single die reactions, and that 10th die being illusion keeps all of those on the table in a way that, if your 10th die was charm left, you'd sort of show your opponent you're out of it. But there are ways around that too. I would be very hard pressed to make a strong case that those decks don't get improved by just adding 1 to 2 dice of another color.
Yeah, and they might, and I think but this is still a good conversation, because it's,
of course,
what color is that you want to add, right, to shore up the weaknesses of the deck. This nature deck probably wants Golden Veil more than any other card.
I think anytime you push the boundaries of something, you're going to find the right sort of levers to pull it back and accentuate it.
Yeah, Charm gets you Gilder and Golden Veil, and those are both probably really good cards to have, because Gilder's effectively nature after round 1, and then you've got Golden Veil on. And
that, I mean, 1 Gilder book and 3 Golden Veils only needs 1 charm die, right? That, but yeah, I think that's that's definitely something, and maybe we do that as we go through these colors and say, all right, what's the color that supplements this color the best, that shores up their weaknesses. And I mean, you're gonna have arguments for every color.
Yeah.
I could say Ceremonial is a great color too, because nature doesn't have a ton of self-clear other than Nature's Wrath, and Ceremonial supplements the burn, right? Like, you can make an argument for every color.
Well, let's go through them. What's the next color you guys want to talk about?
Well, let's talk about Illusion, because that's the one that everyone's doing right now.
Sure.
After Lark did.
And Shmeny just faced it today.
Yeah. It had one charm, I think. But yeah, the mono illusion decks, Lark popularized it by dunking on the whole competition, but most memorably on Killer finals.
Yep.
But some of the trademarks of the mono illusion decks. I faced one being run out of Auric today, but Lark's was Hope. Yeah, I'm not making that.
No,
was
Noah.
Noah, that's right. Noah. So, I think, so some of the trademarks, Shadowhound is super common and is a really big problem. It's a very powerful summon. And it's playable in actually all three of those. It's most vulnerable in something like Auric, but one of the big advantages, or Auric or Noah, one of the big advantages in any of those decks is that you've got you've got the ability to play Particle Shield, which is just a single class die. And so although Shadowhound hard folds to AoE spells, that Particle Shield can do a lot of work in protecting your 3-die investment. And in any deck that likes draw, and that is a feature of these mono illusion decks, Hope has a draw engine with Void Pulse, Particle Shield adds draw, Auric's concentration ability or spell, ready spell, creates draw, as does his meditation, and then you've got Noah's Shadowblade, all providing draw, and those are all lending to the tripling of the Shadowhound books. And then the other big element
the reaction spells too.
Yeah.
Just to have them in hand and ready to use with Reimagine or whatever they're doing.
Yeah, and so that's the other big element here is Reimagine. So these decks tend to have a mill plan A that's on the back of using dice powers that then get stashed on Reimagine, which allows you to stash a time or illusion dice that you've used on a dice power to then spend on reactions. And then the high-powered illusion reactions. And I'll just say, I really like the whole concept of these decks because it really plays into what illusion does uniquely in the card pool, or really well in the card pool, which is the spin down dice power plus a really cool suite of very powerful reactions.
Yeah, I like the interaction the most with Reimagine, because the natural tendency of spinning things down as a plan A, and like we talked about with nature having a very high probability of always having a power side, and then later being able to lock it in so that you always, you get to reuse it. So it's free spin down, or if you look at it the other way, it's a free reaction, is really awesome. And then the weakness that illusion typically has is AoE being able, itself, to deal with swarm units, and Shadowhound, if you can get it focused, helps deal with that as well. And then that's what I think mainly why Lark put it in Noah, because Shadowblade also effectively deals with wide tables. Auric and Hope makes sense in similar fashions, either because of Void Pulse for tall units, or Auric, if you can get there, it's a built-in burn plan as well as board clear. So those three are really interesting. I think I played against Auric when, who was it, Kip? He played against me, and it's grueling. It's very hard to find answers to it all, especially because you always have to worry about Figures in the Fog, which can nullify any plan to sort of force them to block with Hound, just to try and get rid of it. And then No Such Method, I think, has been running Hope version, and again, then you have the duplicate Shadowhound. So stocking on anything that you try and put down. They're very cool. And I think I don't know if we've seen them be taken as far as possible. Certainly would be interesting if whenever the mono illusion set comes out, if it adds more, or if it's already a very tight package. Is there anything you guys think is cuttable? Obviously we don't know what cards would replace it, but what do you think is the weakest link in the mono illusion decks?
They don't have any AoE spells themselves, right? That's something illusion's not good at. And they also don't have, like, their units are they're not very thick, right? That Illusion's units are weak in life.
Yeah, Dreamlock being a notable exception among allies, and False Demon being a really nice 2 health book, but other than that, it's all...
Yeah, I mean, they don't have any 4 life guys or more. They do have the, Dreamlock at 3 life for 2 dice is about as good as you're going to get. Shadowhound is kind of nice with the concealed ability, but like you guys said, notably vulnerable to AoE spells. But Illusion does have both Fate Reflection and Particle Shield to protect it from those.
Yeah, every unit except for Dreamlock, I'm gonna just discount Flash Archer right off the top, but every other unit, ally wise, is 1 life because there's Rosefire Dancer, Shadow Guard, and Hollow.
Yeah, their allies they're very susceptible, other than Shadowhound, to ping into AoE, and Shadowhound too to AoE. So you've got to have plans for that. But like you guys said, I think Shadow Blade is a really good answer to wide decks and to swing through even after your stuff gets cleared.
There's also minimal burn.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, they have Ensnare, but they're not good at burn otherwise.
Well, there's also Dream Fracture.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, in a mono illusion sense, where you are almost guaranteed to be able to spin down enough, then I guess that counts.
Yeah, it seems like Mill is their, like, if Illusion has a plan B, it's probably Mill. Like, or Illusion breaks through a locked up battlefield by spinning you down and milling you. For the most part. I mean, Dream Fracture is good, but it takes up a spellboard slot, and I mean, I don't know. Lark's deck didn't run it, I don't think. Or at least if he did, he didn't have it out against me. I don't think he did. I could be wrong about that. I don't think it's necessary in those big spin down decks.
Yeah, I think I would say Reach. I think we've named it, but I think it's some combination of battlefield stickiness, like being able to keep your own units around, and reach with damage. I think when I think about the color that complements it well, like, I do think the nature with Mist Typhoon has to be a consideration, just to give it some one-sided AoE removal, given how flimsy its side of the battlefield is. And the Auric I played did actually run nature.
It would give you access to either Molten Gold for the burn, or Raptor Herder for just some... I mean, not that you need more bodies, because in theory you could run Mist Spirit, but it's not like that's a bad plan. And then, what else? I don't know that you would ever want Root Armor.
I don't know. You put it on Dreamlock Mage and it's not fun.
That's true. I had to fight my way through a Root Armored Dreamlock Mage in Phoenix League against Clue this week.
Wonder Hunting Weapons Shadowhound?
Hunting Weapons is ally locked, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, anyway. Yeah, so I think it's pretty solid. It'd be interesting to see what comes out that could make it better. A Knight.
Yeah, the other one that comes to mind for me is Sympathy. With it gives you Battle Seer, so you get a big alert body.
Yeah.
It also has Magic Siphon that works into the spin down plan, and Sympathy Pain for more reach if you want it, and Raptor Herder, because Raptor Herder is just that good.
Yeah.
You still don't get AoE, but you get the alert Battle Seer, which kind of helps that.
I think it would be disastrous if this ever existed, but like, it would really love some reaction recursion, because I do think one of the ways that you beat an illusion mono deck is as cost effectively as possible, forcing them to use their reactions while trying not to lock yourself up or meditate too much. So you just try and work your way through them as best you can. So like, I lost, but I came closer than blood points would suggest to winning in that game against the not mono illusion but predominantly illusion Auric today, because Fighting Spirit is one of those ways that I could just keep ever-present threats on the board that work your way through figures in the fog.
It also, at least in my experience, does lose to more of a pure mill. So something like Ruby Cobra is so efficient because they don't want to waste Shadowhound on it. It's only one die. So no matter what, it's going to trade. And the 2 life limit, basically, unless they already have Shadowhound focus, but they're not going to early game, keeps it out of reach of anything that they have. And as far as Lark's deck goes, like unlikely to waste a keepsake on it. So it sticks around and then it just starts chipping away. And it's not a unit that you ever want to defend, to block with or to block against. So that really helps. And then if you have a sort of a pure plan to back that up with doves or anything else that can just sit there and gain you round over round advantage in dice, then I think there's something to it. Also, if you just have a ton of basic sinks, play Demona.
Maybe we can go there next, though. Shift to charm.
I have a mono charm deck that has or did do well through several games, and I do think charm needs a little bit of love, but it has quite a few tools. Obviously, it's mainly geared towards mill. Mine ran in Saria with Orca Dove, Ruby Cobra, Three-Eyed Owl, and then the allies. So like there's Beast Tamer, Violinists, Flock Shepherd, and Ninja. And it's got a lot there. Like it's got some bodies that are not, at least 2 life and not easy to get rid of. It has damage, both direct and amplifiers. So the Rile the Meeks, the Return to Soils, Seeds of Aggression. It has the protection, obviously, with Veil. And then it has a little bit of reach with Sympathy Pain as well. So there's a lot of tools. The main weakness is AoE. There's nothing to deal with spam, really, unless you can, like, even Beast Tamer can't really deal with wide boards.
What about Ryle?
Yeah, I mean, it has Rile the Meek.
Yes, but it's not... I don't know. It's not like you have ping to supplement it. So unless you draw... I
don't know. I mean, you have Return to Soil. You have Violinist. You have... I mean, there's a couple things. I feel like Charm is one of the most well-rounded colors that there is.
It's well-rounded. I'm not disagreeing. I just don't think it has full answers to, like, Tristan Fish, right? It just can't deal with that many, 10 bodies in round 1.
Yeah, that's difficult. And one thing you didn't mention is it also is pretty good at bypass too. I mean, it has Hypnotize and it has Mindfog Owl, and those are 2 really good bypass cards.
Yeah.
So it does a lot of stuff. But I think Mill is, if you're playing mono charm, right? Mill is probably the best to do that with. It's probably its best plan B. It can have Sympathy Pain in there. I mean, the thing about Hypnotize is there's not like a big, fat, massive unit you want to throw at something.
Hypnotize, the ready spell from Aoni. 2 class charm side action, basically make something unblockable.
I mean, Charms has like a 2 attack unit. That's about as big as you're going to go if you don't amplify a 0.
But you have no way to cheat side actions to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Let's go back quickly. We already sort of did it with Illusion, but let's pick 3 Phoenixborn that you think are best suited for a given color. So we talked about Auric Hope and Noah for Illusion.
I think those are good ones.
Yeah, Aradel was one choice for Nature. What would be... So that was like Killer's pick. What would be your pick, Shmen, for Nature?
I'm going to go a little bit out of left field, perhaps, and say Odette for a couple reasons. One, her main action is just another removal spell. The Sword of Virtue can be a refresh on your massive threats, and it's also the hard big unit removal that Nature lacks.
Okay, so I guess we're going... I have to think out of the box, because that was my choice.
Oh, sorry. I should know, as a dedicated Odette player. You've converted me. What can I say?
Yeah.
Lulu?
I wonder, well, there's either, I don't know if Cole, for similar reasons to having a built-in removal, and also Butterfly Monk and Pain Shaman supplement that healing. So it gives him a bigger life total and gives him the extra faster reach with the burn spells. So he sort of has his own built-in bypass. Of course, knights are still an issue there. Anything with a really, like, I think we're always looking at sort of like basic sinks. So I would have said maybe Tristan, or actually probably Tristan. You have Tsunami Shot, which is awesome. Magnify works with at least 3 of the units. It works with Butterfly Monk, Frostback Bear, and Frostfang.
And also Raptor Hatchling.
And Hatchling. Yeah, that's true. So that's probably, Cole or Tristan.
Okay.
I'll say Cole, because I know that it'll get the most listeners.
All right. Back to Charm. Let me just say, I agree with you, Killer. I think Charm is maybe the best, most well-rounded monocolor. But one of the things that's interesting about it is what makes it well-rounded is by doubling down on Charm, you solve a lot of the weaknesses that are otherwise present. So like really leaning into the 0 attack units and the monocolor, you get Amplify to make 4 attack Cobras, you get Rile the Meek to deal with its AoE problems. But what's interesting about that is like, I still think its win con is mill. So you address some of its weaknesses, but I'm not sure, strictly speaking, how much it needs. Like, Amplify is very tempting and it can be powerful in certain situations, but it also feels like potentially a bit of a red herring. If you're able to lock the board down in other ways, it requires you to commit units forward. It can be guarded and you're probably not going to win on damage anyway. So anyway, I think it is a really interesting monocolor. I'm not sure how much the well-roundedness though necessarily advances its win con. Mill is still relatively fragile, and I think, just to jump ahead, I think it is it really benefits, I think, from a single color splash of something else, and I'd nominate Divine for Neil, which solves a whole bunch of problems. It's basically pseudo big unit removal as well as crowd control, and just enables you to dirtle as you do.
Yeah, its weakness is that it doesn't have any real offensive pressure, because you're not attacking with doves, you're not attacking with Three-Eyed Owl. Ruby Cobra is chip damage, but it doesn't do anything else. So if you face any sort of beefy deck, you basically can't clear them. And that becomes a problem, because then you're falling behind on the board while still trying to get your mill, which is a slower win condition there.
It doesn't really have strong single unit removal unless you count Captivate, which I don't.
That's true.
Yeah, you have Seeds of Aggression, but your units are so weak that it doesn't do a lot of damage.
So just to say the other one, Carl has repeatedly said one of the best Ashes players, if not the best. I don't know where he is on the leaderboards these days.
He's in space.
Nightshade Swallow is a super toxic card, and he's glad people don't realize it and play it more. And that is definitely a summon that you unlock being in mono charm. And its big challenge is that it is a 1/2, so it gets neither the 0 attack bonuses nor can it block a bear. But it does have some ways of slowing down other big threats if you can find ways of killing it, like with redirects, for example, or just by blocking other units.
And that's another point in favor for adding Divine, because you can buff it up to 2 and then it can block a bear.
Yeah, like Rayward Recruit plus Nightshade Swallow is something I was thinking about. Like, bump it to 2, and if you've got the Flock Shepherd, you instantly create two blockers.
I'm actually going to say that I think Ceremonial is the best for Charm because it enables a few cards. It enables Fester for large removal. It enables Old Salt, which now I think is just, it's a great additional card. It's got the beefier life. It's got the built-in ping, which helps. And then also enables Blood Archer, which is a really good card. And there's just some other tools in there too. Like if you want extra reach, you have Final Cry, which is really cool. So, and Fire Archer. I just think it has a lot of interesting tools. If you wanted to go the more Mill Durdley route, you have Blood Puppeteer, and maybe even potentially Psychic Vampire. I don't know, like you could do a real don't attack me, otherwise you're just advancing my win con type of thing. And then if you were struggling against Swarm, you have Crimson Bomber. So there's just a lot there. And you could even go with the Chant package for, Chant Fusion and Ritualist or Phoenix Attendant.
That's a very compelling wrong argument. I liked it.
So I'll throw another one out there that is not as good as your two, but when Schmendrick said, "How do I deal with Tristan Fish?"
No, that was treatment. Our listeners have a hard enough time telling our voices apart.
Yes, okay. Especially those from overseas.
Yeah. Well, whenever somebody said, "How do I deal with the wide board?" My first thought was Sunshield Sentry, and that makes me want to splash in Time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a terrible idea.
So, that does give you 2 shadows for some big unit removal, alongside Sunshield Sentry to gum up the game. I don't think it's as good as Divine, where you get Neil and Meteor and Divine buffs and even Steadfast Guardian maybe. But Sunshield Sentry is a really good card, especially against wide boards. So
I'm confused as to why you've overlooked the most powerful removal option you unlock with Time, which is redirect into your own Ash Spirit.
Ash Spirit. Yeah.
Of course.
Hey, I've been playing that Jericho that runs Ash Spirit, and the thing was good for a while, but that was before I found frogs and all of their loveliness.
All right, so best Phoenixborn for Charm?
Oh, it's Leo.
Yeah, or I'm going to say Saria or Soraya. I still don't know what the right word is, but yeah.
It's sorry. I asked Isaac. I made him pronounce it for me.
Okay.
You can put that one to bed.
All right, I'm gonna throw in a wild one here, which is Symbali, and specifically for spamming Imperial Ninja attacks is super annoying. And she can do things like purify her exhausted enchanted violinists. Like, I think there might be something there.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
Yeah, I really like the Symboli Charm stuff. I've run into a couple decks with like Beast Tamer and Imperial Ninja and Violinist and Symboli, and it's fairly annoying to deal with, so I would second that.
All right, what color do we take on next? Ceremonial?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the most widespread after Illusion. I've seen Brian B running mono ceremonial decks. I've had a mono ceremonial Brennan for a little while now that hasn't done great, but I've been messing with it. I've seen a couple mono ceremonial Jessas in the wild. I think ceremonial is a pretty good color as well. Obviously, it has more cards than anybody else right now, so that's what lends itself to having a strong mono deck. The chant stuff is really good and can do a lot of different things.
It's really well balanced, I think, as a color too.
It can't mill you, right? That's one thing it can't do, or at least not good at doing.
Sounds like a challenge for somebody.
Yeah. It can burn you though, and
yeah,
it doesn't really have much bypass, but it's good at removal, it's good at self clear, and it's good at burn. And it doesn't have conjurations. That's like good conjurations. That's the other problem with it. So it's very very reliant on allies. But with the way Chant and Fallen are now, that's almost a benefit instead of a hindrance.
Yeah, Fallen is its book.
Yeah.
Bone Crow be darned.
Yeah. I still stand Crowdet, though. It's worked for me.
It's got a great name.
It's pulled a lot of weight. Yeah. Brian's deck, I pulled it up. It's Chant of Transfusion.
What's it called?
Fallen.
For those Fallen.
And 1 die to rule them all. So he does it in James, and it's it's got the chants, Fallen, and then 3 of almost every ally. So Bomber, Old Salt, Phoenix Attendant, Rising Horde, and then just like, it's got Sleeping Widows, which is always good. It's even got a Calamity Golem in there to make Nick happy, and then Blood Brawl, Fester, Vengeance for crazy shenanigans and turning on the Fallen as well.
That's definitely one I want to play. That looks fun.
Vengeance is really cool with Rising Horde and Sleeping Widows, both of which are double ceremonial cards, right? So like we said before, having the mono ceremonial makes that not a big deal anymore to play a double class costed card. So it kind of definitely lends itself to a James build like that for sure.
As a side note, Vengeance is the only card like it, right? It X basic to get an effect with X. There's nothing else like it. And I think that's a cool mechanic.
Does Transmute Magic still do that?
I don't think so. I don't think it's spend X.
It is. I don't think it says X, but it is. But that is what it does. You can switch any number of exhausted die with unexhausted die.
Maybe that was the 1.0. I think in 1.0 it costs X dice, and then you got to take X dice back, or something. But yeah, so then you're right. Vengeance would be the only card that has a cost like that.
So then, what does it need for supplement? You said the main things is it doesn't have bypass, it doesn't have mill,
and it doesn't have books. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. Like a solid book is, I think, very helpful. Like a unit guard or something. Very helpful to ceremonial.
I think like place I might look would be Sympathy. Personally, it adds potential burn with Sympathy Pain, and it's got a really great book suite, including Vampire Bats, which the deck probably doesn't mind, given that it can just always, if it wants to, clone them. And if you don't want bats, that's fine. You've got, even just little utility. Sally's still good, actually. You could do worse than blood chainsing your 0/1 Sally Spirit.
Yeah, I think Sympathy is the right answer as well. I mean, Mirror Spirit is good. Like you said, Vampire Bat's really good. I mean, obviously, my Herald that I played in the pod tournament was Ceremonial Sympathy. And
oh yeah, where did I get that idea?
I think it gives you a few different things that could be interesting depending on how you want to do it. So it gives you, now that Golem is available, gives you Adrenaline Rush, which could be neat.
Well, you had that anyway. Oh
yeah, because it's parallel. It's parallel, right. But also either Guilt Link or Crescendos.
Oh, Guilt Link's a good call.
Nice to both enable your Fallen, but also help with removal. Crescendos is great because if you are playing Fallen, then they're not good at dealing with big units, and so being able to crescendo a Rising Horde into the Fallen, get the tokens, take something out that's 3 life is a good play.
Yeah, it has Magic Siphon too, to add that. I mean, Magic Siphon can be a win con in and of itself sometimes, and it's just nice to have the side action dice fixing and a little bit of spin down, especially to make sure those big removal spells like Fester and Blood Chains hit and don't get Golden Veiled.
So Phoenixborn, I mean, I think James is clearly a contender because his ability is basically like another book in an ally heavy deck. I think Brennan still has to be one of the top. I mean, she's taken some hits.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, Brennan and Jessa is also there. I'm just wondering if there are any not like sort of overlooked or non-obvious picks. I mean, Rowan is another one, either with Blood Puppeteer or Rising Horde, which is sort of the main one. I just don't know what you fill his spellboard with in that case.
Yeah, it'd have to be a bunch of chance, and you don't get the card draw, which is something Ceremonial's bad at, and that he kind of wants.
Herald is, I think, another potentially interesting one, because you could, especially again, if we're talking Fallen or Old Salt and any other source of ping, you're doubling the value and also guaranteeing that you can take out certain targets, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. You have Demona as well. I don't know that Demona is winning any events anytime soon, but she's very ally focused and just kind of lends herself well, I think, to Ceremonial and the allies they can bring. They're all good. A lot of them are good mount.
All right, we've got 3 left. Sympathy, Divine Time. Where do we want to go next? Let's bang it out fast.
Well, of those 3, Sympathy is the only one I've actually seen done.
Yeah.
In the wild. Let's talk about that. I mean, people still say that Nominee's precon might be the strongest precon that there is.
It's really good.
And that's Mono Sympathy. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an indicator of the kind of strength Sympathy can have. River Scald is a really good card. Like, there's a reason it's chained. And being able to run 3 of them without worrying about your spread of dice is very good. It has some good spin down stuff with Magic Siphon and even stuff like Night Song Cricket, Transmute Magic.
Shatter Pulse
can spin dice down.
Yeah, sure.
And you put that into a Phoenixborn like Hope or something where you can Void Pulse and also spin down dice. And you can have a little bit of a spin down plan B. It also has Sympathy, Pain, and Raptor Herder too, and it kind of benefits from getting a lot of cards that are parallel. It has all these parallel costed cards, right? So you get to steal a lot of the good cards from other colors, like Raptor Herder and Sympathy, Pain. So I don't know. I think it's got a lot going for it, and like you said before, the books are good. It has a couple good allies in Flute Mage and River Scald. And String Mage is good too.
I was going to say String Mage is, still, I think, good. And when time was all the rage,
yeah,
with tokens everywhere, String Mage was a strong counter. I still think it's probably, a fairly strong counter to a lot of decks. Maybe even outside of the small sack String Mage combo.
And it's another very well-rounded color. It can fix dice. It does not have AoE, which maybe is his biggest weakness. And I don't think it's great at dealing with wide boards. There's nothing alert in Mono Sympathy. There's no AoE. There's not a lot of ping.
That's pretty rough.
It does have a couple good... Yeah, it does have a couple good single target removal spells. I mean, it has Shatter Pulse. It has Crescendo. It has River Scald. Those things can kill bigger units. But not a lot of stuff against a wide board.
I mean, nature is the PB&J
for sure.
Sympathy. I don't think there's any other color that has the kind of synergy that you're looking for, as well as all the units that all of a sudden it enables.
Totally.
Between those 2 colors. I mean, Huntmaster alone as one of the best knights.
Creeper.
And then, Creeper. It all of a sudden fixes all those other problems. It gives you the AoE. It gives you the ping source.
Yep.
It's just, it could give you more burn reach if you want to go with mold golds. I think it's the color to include. I don't think, I rarely, if I'm looking for a deck like that, I don't think I ever avoid the 2 color combination. It's usually the third. I'm like, what am I going to add to it?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of generically strong. So like, where do you put it? Like, what Phoenixborn do you put it in?
I like Hope.
They're always the answer, but I think they are actually legitimately a really good answer here.
Yeah.
I just think Void Pulse with the extra spin down kind of does, and the draw, right, those are 2 things that Sympathy likes and is good at. And it just kind of meshes well. Not a lot now that Salamander is errata, that it's not as strong with duplicate. But he still has Raptor Hatchling, and I mean Salamander Monk, and even Ancestor Spirit, if you had to get crazy, is not a terrible duplicate. So there's some stuff there. I mean, Nominee is the Sympathy Phoenixborn, but she's just not good right now.
No.
Well, we might as well at least talk, though, like first of another, like we said we saw the deck recently, so we might as well talk about it, and it's Lark's deck again. And it's interesting because he chose, I've played against it. Shmeny, you played against it, and it was in Rowan, which of all things is not really what I would have expected. But he was using, as far as I can remember, Memorialize, Night Song Cricket, Stallion, and Sally. And then Rowan's ability was mainly used on Scald to do big damage, which was really cool. And you can get rid of allies. I think he had a Beast Mage in there, so it's 3 damage, but then with Memorialize, inevitably you can bring it back, and Exhume is triggering Memorialize as well. So it's a neat little synergy that he had going on. And then for any cards that you might be drawing, you stuff them on Stallion. So that was pretty cool. I don't remember what else he had in there. Obviously I think there was a Flute Mage for the Stallion thing. I don't know if there was a String Mage. Do you remember?
I don't remember. But yeah, I mean, the basic goal is eventually use all those readies. I played it and I was fairly even until he got the 3 Red Rains tokens, and then it was just extremely difficult to deal with the Chimera in the face of all that removal. He just battered me down. Flute Mages and Adrenaline Rushes refreshing it. So it was very cool. It definitely opened my eyes. I still think, again, in that deck, one time to add Era's End I refuse to believe that would not make that deck stronger. But I don't know. I'm not the expert.
It also would give you Fate Reflection, which I think would be really big. One cool trick that Rowan can do as well, and I don't remember if I'm making this up or if he actually used this, but Hollow and Exhume is more spin down because he also had the Magic Siphon to add that pressure. So between Hollow and then Exhuming it and Magic Siphon, that's a lot of dice. That's 5 around for only a couple dice.
Yeah.
And with Stallion, if you get a Jungle Warrior on board, then it's a basic to refresh the Stallion, and you put a token on it. And then when you use another basic to exhume it, you're getting another token on top of it, which is kind of cool. So, I mean, there's neat little tricks there, and you could spend a 3rd basic for another refresh, but there's just a lot of interesting synergies that I see.
I'll just plug 2 other Phoenixborn real quick in Sympathy. One is Lulu. I think Focused Mirror Spirits and Lulu are really interesting. It's something I was playing around with, but the ability to spark a Mirror Spirit that you may have removed a token from to exhaust something and make it a 2/2 again, I think is pretty cool. And then I think Jericho with Blink has some interesting tricks. It's weird to just completely give up on a Phoenixborn's ability, and you could always add in a time for that, but Scald and Mirror Spirit are 2 really great Blink targets.
I mean, I guess you can't. I was going to say you could draw the card with Sympathy die, but you can't actually use the ability because it's time die. But yeah, Scald and Mirror Spirit are amazing with Blink. I've played that game and had a lot of fun with it.
The other 2 that have similar refresh or abilities that synergize well with either Mirror Spirit or otherwise are Koji and Echo. So Echo traditionally is Sympathy with Chaos Gravity, and that gives you 2 forms of bypass, but it also gives you the synergy with Gravity Flux and Mirror Spirit. And then Koji, is very similar, where you get both the token and then with Lick Wounds, you both have some heal if you need it, but also the refresh. So I think those are interesting choices.
Sympathy is really good. We're trying to shoot for an hour here, and I think we've just about made it. But there are 2 colors left, Divine and Time, and I'm gonna say something controversial, maybe instead of going through all of these, and say that I think these are the 2 colors that are most needing the monocycle, which is weird to say because Time, we just went through a whole Time cycle that started with a Time mono deck, but I still think its internal synergy is not super strong outside of the token stuff and Fighting Spirit. Like, I think there might be something there. And Divine, I think it really suffers from having a pretty problematic mono deck in Odette with the emphasis on laws, and I think Piercing Light that was introduced in Demona is super interesting, but it's just, I don't think it's there yet at all as something that you can really build around. And so I don't want to shortchange them entirely, but I think those are 2 colors that are pretty rough for mono builds right now. Am I wrong?
I will disagree on Time, or at least I should say that in theory I disagree because I haven't tried it, but I think there is a decent mono Time deck that you can make. I have it in Hope just as like we were theory crafting, Killer and I, a couple weeks ago, and between Time Hopper, Wishing Wing, Fighting Spirit, and Omenbringer, like there's a lot of, it's a very fast and fragile deck, but you can get really big punches in, and Hope just elevates sort of all of that package. And then there's a lot of protection as well in all the reactions, which is kind of neat. I guess I can see the argument that a lot of what the Time cycle brought was Time synergy with all of the other colors. So Time and Sympathy is one of the biggest ones. Tristan really elevated it with Tidal Crab. You do have the bigger units like what is it?
Leviathan?
Sentry. Or Leviathan is also interesting. So I can see that it needs help because it really is more geared towards at least 2 colors. But I think you could still probably do something. And I will probably use it as the color to try.
And if anyone can, it would be Redentor.
Yeah.
That's the Phoenixborn for Time. Redentor.
It's really hard to not play Tidal Crab in those decks too, and that needs a Sympathy die. But I do think that, so to Spendrix, to your point, I believe that these are the 2 colors that have the weakest plan Bs.
Yeah.
Like they don't have, like, Time has Standstill, and that's it. Like there's that you can bypass with that. There's not a lot else. I mean, Stasis, I guess, and I don't know. Divine has nothing. I mean, like the overkill stuff should be the plan B for Divine, but it's just not there. Like
Divine is really hurting for anything, for everything.
For a plan B. I mean, there's a lot of good cards in Divine. But it's the supplemental color right now. It can't, I mean, there's decks that can play like 5 Divine dice, but you can't play, it's really hard to play 10 Divine. I mean, you're basically stuck in a Piercing Light deck, and, now that Meteor's chained, you don't have like a big play in round 1 to blow out your opponent with. I used to have a Remia deck that tried to set up Piercing Light and Royal Charm in round 1 and then do stuff like Ancestral Army, Shepherd of Lost Souls to get it back, and then Meteor the board and play it again. Like there was that, and that was fun, but even then it wasn't good. Now without Meteor, I have no idea what I would do with it.
It's got nothing. Like, I mean, it has Angelic Rescue as the only reaction. As far as allies and action spells go, it really doesn't have all that much. I mean, it has a lot of heal, both Phoenixborn heal and unit heal, between heal the card heal itself. Sun Sister, it's got like defensive stuff like Shield Mage, and you can recur things between Revival Pack, Shepherd. Rally the Troops is also more heal, but it doesn't do like it doesn't do anything. It sort of plays to the board, but it doesn't win the board with any heavy removal other than Meteor, which is fine. But then what do you do? It's got Winged Lioness, which I think is awesome. Lightbringer is obviously great, but then Emperor, Lion, and Admonisher and all the laws are super weak, ready spell wise.
They're not weak. They're just niche, right? They're
niche, but they don't support any of.
It's not a niche that's shared within the color. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're niche with it's the support color, right? Like Law of Fear is awesome, but not in a divine deck that you're trying to use Overkill to win with, right? Like it's the opposite of what you're trying to do. So yeah, divine needs a better plan B.
It needs a plan A.
I think it needs a plan A. Yeah, I think it's generally just it's struggling. Like, what single target does it have? Any single target removal?
Chain
creations.
Jinx.
That's not even hard removal. It's 2 damage. Like, it doesn't have anything else.
Yeah, Wing Lioness is the removal spell, right? Like
on Sword of Virtue.
That's yeah. Like. I mean, Wing Lioness with Power Through is a good removal spell. That right, but that's it. Like there's Law of Domination.
Oh yeah, that's one.
I guess. I mean, you can do it's got Holy Relics and Crystal Armor, but again, it's not. I just don't think it has a strong plan A, even on the board. If we're just talking does it really win by itself on the battlefield? I think you're still going to struggle.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah, so you splash Illusion for Dark Presence.
We have bypass.
Now you've got bypass Voltron units that are still bad.
So but really then, so what would be your color to support it? I don't know that Illusion really supports it.
It's hard. I mean, Divine is all about control. It has a lot of good control cards. So you need a way to win the game. And if we're just gonna it can control the board, or because it had Lightbringer and Wing Lioness and Law of Fear, these are good control cards. But it just doesn't, like you guys said, has no win condition. Maybe you play it in a Phoenix Morn that has a built-in win condition, and then you just control the battlefield. I don't know.
The 2 colors that I tend to either see it paired with or I pair it with myself is either Charm for the more defensive mill-based deck. So then you're adding a mill win con. You have access to Kneel. You have access to Sympathy, Pain, things like that. Or you go with the really big bypass stuff in either Hydra or Archosaurus Mount. So if you're doing well, no, you can't. I guess those would be the 2.
Like an 8/2 Divine Charm deck is not going to mill you.
No, I'm saying maybe more than 2 dice.
Yeah,
right? But
I mean,
those would be the 2 that I pair with, and you could do an Echo, Chaos, Gravity type of shenanigans.
Yeah, now I think the bypass stuff, if you're only going to splash one color in, like the Hydra, Archosaurus, Raptor Herder type stuff, or Hydra, Archosaurus, or Massive Growth, that makes sense. And Frostback Bear. I don't know if you can get all that done with 2 dice, but that does make some sense to me.
Yeah, I think I'm excited to see how Nick builds the Divine set.
Yeah.
I think I remain excited by the potential of Piercing Light. I think we've gotten a taste of the power that Overkill can offer to close a game with the Chimera from Rowan's deck, and it's a tricky mechanic because I think it could be quite oppressive. I mean, it removes your option from blocking to prevent damage, basically. But
I think so too. If it wasn't so hard to get it and Royal Charm set up, it could be kind of nasty.
Yeah.
It just needs more effects to put the dice down.
Yeah, that's what he said in whatever he was on. When
That was with us.
was it on your guys' show that I wasn't on? Yeah, he was saying like they just need more stuff, more ways to get divine dice on stuff.
If Winged Lioness, if there was a Mind Fog Owl equivalent focus effect on Winged Lioness, I think that would be really
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
Next to Rada.
Or just another book coming.
Another conjuration that is similar to Wayward Knight.
Wayward Knight or Wayward Recruit?
Recruit, sorry. It's just, I don't want it to be too many eggs in one basket on the reusing charm, because that still just lends itself to the battlefield, but it would be nice to reinforce one of the other potential win conditions. So we'll have to see though where, what happens with it.
I do hope that like Overkill, if they're gonna do something for Divine, it's that it is kind of a unique secondary win condition, right? Like if you're a swing deck, then you're able to get through with Overkill. That's pretty cool. I will say that I like Ceremonial with Divine. I've been messing with Divine Ceremonial Brennan decks lately, and I think there's something there. I just can't nail it down. But all those control cards and then Ceremonial to supplement with Burn to close out a game in a Phoenixborn that has a win condition printed on them. Like I don't think I would do it without Brennan or maybe Jessa, but something like that.
Ceremonial Divine also gives you access to Carl's two favorite cards, which is Grave Knight and Reaping Angel.
Yes.
Yeah, let's troll Carl hard.
Yeah. Let's do that. His ELO's 100 points above every other player in the world. He has no idea what he's talking about. Let's troll him. Yeah.
Let's make him angry. All right, well, we did it. We
solved mono.
We solved Ceremonial decks, yeah.
And if we put you to sleep...
Oh, no, Phoenixborn, though.
Oh, come on.
Oh,
Phoenix. You got to pick the Phoenixborn for Divine. And Time. Did we do that one? No.
We did Time, didn't we? No?
Well, I said Hope, but you guys didn't pick.
Hope, Lulu, and Jericho are the Time Phoenixborn.
Okay, I buy that.
Okay.
Divine?
Divine, I don't know, Brennan, Jessa, and...
Brennan?
Some other Phoenixborn that has a...
What are you going to do with Brennan?
Jess.
I'm gonna change of heart, bounce Shepherd of Lost Souls over and over and over.
Oh, okay.
And pick up stuff, and I'm gonna...
Right, so you're going to...
control the board and Burn. I don't know. Or just use Burn and control cards like Law of Fear and Meteor to wipe all your guys out and then burn you to death. I think both are valid. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up because I don't think Divine is good on its own. But
Xander's sort of an obvious one. It gives a little bit extra. It adds to the recursion.
I guess I can't see a mono Xander, like a mono Divine Xander, but I guess you have Earthquake and Meteor, and so it's a bunch of AoE. I don't know. You do that with like Safeguard shenanigans that I was doing for a while and stopped doing. I wish I would go back to that because it was awesome. Where you do the wide swing and then they don't block it and leave all their guys up, and then you side action Safeguard, and the next turn you AoE blow up all their stuff. I should do more of that. It was fun.
Safeguard plus Survival of the Fittest. Do it. Come on. That's actually probably sick.
Yeah, ideas. I think probably Demona, Echo, Xander are among the top picks for Divine.
Yeah, that probably makes more sense than what I said.
Yeah, what you said didn't make any sense.
All right. And with that, frog up. Until next time.
Frog up.
Later.
All right, guys.
See ya.